Today we are going to discuss about the spinal cord part 1, in which we are going to discuss about the external features of the spinal cord. So myself Dr. Muradhar Badiger, Department of Shahar Rachana, Gramin Ayurvedic Medical College, Terdal. So come to the point, introduction. All of you know the central nervous system includes the brain and the spinal cord. Before going to that, the nervous system are basically divided into CNS and the PNS. And CNS means central nervous system, PNS means peripheral nervous system. This central nervous system, which includes the brain and the spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system, which includes the nerves which are attached to the brain, are called by the name of cranial nerves. The nerves, those which are attached to the spinal cord, they are called by the name of spinal nerves. So here, central nervous system, which includes the brain and the spinal cord. Brain is the uppermost part of the central nervous system, and spinal cord is the lowermost part of the central nervous system. So this central nervous system, this spinal cord is the continuation of the medulla oblongata. See, brain, after the brain there will be a brainstem. Brainstem includes the midbrain, pons and medulla oblongata. This medulla oblongata descends downwards as a elongated structure. So this elongated structure itself is the spinal cord. The spinal cord starts at the level of the cervical first vertebrae. This spinal cord is the highway for the ascending and descending tracts. Then what is the tract? The tract is the collection of the axons in the central nervous system is called tract. Then ascending tract means the nerve fibers or axons are ascending upwards. They carries the sensory information to the brain. Then the descending tract means the axons of the nerve starts from the brain and descending downwards. They carries the information from up to the down. So ascending tracts carries the upward impulse, and descending tract means they carries the downward impulse. So this spinal cord is the highway for the ascending axons and the descending axons. These ascending axons all are in the sensory nature, and descending tracts or descending pathways are all are in the motor in nature. Apart from that, the spinal cord act as a center for the reflex. Then what is the reflex? Reflex means sudden reaction or sudden response. Involuntary response for the stimuli. Sudden involuntary response by the stimulus or for the stimulus is called by the name of reflex. For example, you are walking on the road, suddenly something is passed in front of you, so then suddenly what's going to, there will be a change in your body. Suddenly you jump from that place, and after that you are analyzing what exactly that is. So suddenly you took the decision, but the decision is involuntary. So such a reactions, sudden reaction to the stimuli, is a involuntary nature, are called by the name of reflex. So this spinal cord acts as a centers for some reflexes. Spinal cord location, dimension and the shape. So location, the spinal cord is located in the vertebral canal. The vertebral canal means the vertebrae are having the central canal throughout the length, so that is called vertebral canal. The spinal cord is situated in the vertebral canal, but the spinal cord is extended from C1 vertebrae to the L1 vertebrae. After the L1 vertebrae, only nerve fibers are there, but spinal cord is going to end here. The length of the spinal cord is 45 centimeter, and weight of the spinal cord is 30 grams, and shape of the spinal cord is elongated and cylindrical. So one more important concept before going to understand the external features, we should understand this concept. What is this concept? See, at the third month of the fetus, what is there in the third month of the fetus? The length of the spinal cord, is equal to the length of the vertebral column. It means cervical vertebrae are correspond to the cervical part of the spinal cord, thoracic vertebrae are corresponding to the thoracic part of the spinal cord, and lumbar vertebrae are corresponding to the lumbar part of the spinal cord, and sacral related to the sacral part of the spinal cord, and coccyx vertebrae are related to the coccyx part of the spinal cord. It is means they are respectively they are situated. But after the third month, vertebral column grows very fast, but spinal cord remain as it is. Then what is going to happen? Spinal cord length is as it is, but the vertebral column is going to, length of the vertebral column is going to increase. Then in the adult, as a result of this, in the adult, what is going to happen? the spinal cord lower end terminates at the L1. It means the cervical part of the spine or cervical part of the spinal cord is in the cervical region, thoracic is in near to the thoracic region. But what about the lumbar and the sacral? Sacral and lumbar coccygeal part of the spinal cord is concentrated between the L1 and T12 and T11. Here only all the things are concentrated. But here what is going to happen? Sacral part gives the rise to the nerves, or lumbar part gives it gives the origin for the lumbar nerves. So these nerves are originating from the spinal cord and descending downwards and passing through the respective foramina. For example, L1 for example, sacral one nerve, spinal nerve is descending downwards and exiting through the S1 vertebrae below the body of the first S1 vertebrae. So like this, the length of the spinal cord is not proportional to the length of the vertebral column in the adult. Because of that reason, lower part of the spinal cord has some changes. That changes we are going to discuss later. So as the anatomy, first we are going to discuss the parts of the spinal cord. Parts of the spinal cord divided into two parts. First we are going to discuss about the external features. Next we are going to discuss about the internal features. First, the external features. External features of the spinal cord. First we are going to discuss coverings of the spinal cord and enlargement of the spinal cord, end surfaces and sulcuses and fissures related to the spinal cord, and spinal nerves and the spinal segments. One by one we are going to discuss. First we are going to discuss about the coverings of the spinal cord. All of you know brain is covered by the membrane, or the main is covered by the meninges. Meninges are the triple layer. The same meninges are going to cover the spinal cord also. So this spinal cord having the three coverings. The outermost covering is called dura mater, middle one is called arachnoid mater, and innermost layer is called by the name of pia mater. The dura mater is the outermost. See, this is the dura mater. Second one is the arachnoid mater, and third one is the pia mater. Pia mater is very thin and closely adherent to the tissue of the spinal cord. Next we are going to discuss about the interlayer spaces. It means here the dura mater and the arachnoid mater. Between the dura mater and arachnoid mater there is a space, and arachnoid mater and the pia mater there will be a space, and between the vertebrae and the dura mater there is a space. So these spaces are we are going to discuss. So interlayer spaces are three in number. First one is the epidural space, second one is subdural space, third one is the subarachnoid space. In this picture you can see, first I am going to enlarge this picture. See, this is the spinal cord. This part is the spinal cord. Spinal cord is closely covered by the pia mater. This is the brown color. This is the pia mater. After that there will be a gap. After the gap there will be a black color line that is called by the name arachnoid mater. After the arachnoid mater there will be a green color line that is called dura mater. Green color is dura mater, black is arachnoid mater, and brown color is the pia mater. So, and outermost covering, outermost layer, it is the bony part that is called vertebrae. So here after the vertebrae or before the dura mater or between the vertebrae and the dura mater there is a space, or outside the dura mater inside the vertebrae there is a space that is called epidural space. And after that dura mater and arachnoid mater, between that there is another space that is called by the name of subdural space. And after the dura mater and the pia mater there is a big space, so this space is called subarachnoid space. Epidural space means outside the or above the dura mater is epidural space. Between the dura mater and the arachnoid mater that is the subdural space, and this one is the arachnoid mater, and this is the pia mater. Between the arachnoid and pia mater there is a space. That space is called subarachnoid space. In the subarachnoid space there is a presence of the fluid. That fluid is known as CSF, that is called cerebrospinal fluid. Next, we are going to discuss about the enlargement of the spinal cord. Already I told spinal cord is a elongated cylindrical structure, but in the neck region or in the cervical part it is dilated, and in the lumbar region also dilated. So this is a dilatation because of presence of the excessive nerves for the upper limb and the lower limb. So these swellings are called by the name of cervical enlargement and the lumbar enlargement or lumbosacral enlargement. This enlargement of the spinal cord are two in number. One is the cervical, another one is the lumbar enlargement. Cervical enlargement present in the cervical part, which is extending from C4 to T12 segments. Segments, the word is related to the spinal cord, not related to the vertebrae. So cervical enlargement is found at the level of C4 and the T2 and segments, and it is about 38 millimeter wide, and here there is a extra nerves are going to arise, they are supplying to the upper limb. That means this enlargement is due to the presence of the upper limb muscles. And lumbar enlargement, which is extending from L2 to S3 segments are related to the spinal cord, because spinal cord is going to end at L1 or L2, but there is no S3, it is not extending up to the S3, but segments are found on the spinal cord. So it means lumbar enlargement to be found at the level of L2 to S3 segment of the spinal cord. So it is 35 mm wide, and which is because this is due to the presence of the lower limb muscle nerves. Next, we are going to discuss about the ends, surfaces and fissures or the sulcus present on the spinal cord. First, we are going to discuss ends. So spinal cord consists of the two ends, one is the upper end, another one is the lower end. Surfaces, anterior surface, posterior surface and the lateral surface. And fissures means deep depressions are called fissures, and superficial depressions are called sulcus. So it consists of anterior median fissure, posterior median sulcus, anterolateral sulcus and posterolateral sulcus. One by one we are going to discuss. First we are going to discuss the ends. End is the upper end and lower end. So it consists of the upper end and the lower end. Upper end is continuous with the medulla oblongata at the C1 level. It means cervical first vertebrae. So lower end terminates at L1 vertebrae or L2 vertebrae. It's the ends here. But L1 vertebrae, L2 vertebrae, the spinal cord is going to terminate. So it means upper end is continuous as a medulla oblongata at C1 vertebrae, and lower end terminate at the level of L1 vertebrae or L2 vertebrae. L2 vertebrae. After the termination, this lower end has some special features. So this lower end continues as some special features. They are conus medullaris, quada equina and phylum terminale. What these are conus medullaris, quada equina and phylum terminale? See here, the spinal cord is going to terminate at the level of L1 or L2. How it is going to terminate? It is terminate in the form of cone shape. So because of that reason it is called conus medullaris. And L1 vertebrae, it is spinal cord is terminating at the level of L1 or L2, but lumbar, sacral and coccygeal nerves are descending downwards and exiting from the respective foramina. Because of this arrangement, a bunch of nerves are descending downwards. So this bunch of nerves is called quada equina. And in the center of the quada equina, there is a one thin filament is descending downwards, that is related to the pia mater, that is called by the name of phylum terminale. Detail we are going to discuss about one by one. What is quada equina? What is conus medullaris? The lower end of the spinal cord terminates at the L1 or L2 vertebrae in the form of cone. I think all of you know the cone ice cream. So it is like this. Terminate at the level of L2 and or L1 vertebrae in the form of cone. So this terminated part is called by the name of conus medullaris. In this picture you can see the spinal cord is terminated here in the form of cone. So this is called conus medullaris. Next we are going to discuss about the quada equina. To understand the quada equina, first I am giving one simile, especially in the Indian woman hairstyle. See, they are putting like this, and they are putting the rubber band here, and after that hairs are free here. So you can consider this is a spinal cord. Spinal cord is terminating here at the L2 or L1 vertebrae. There is a rubber band it represents, and remaining fibers are descending downwards. So this bunch of the hair, or this is bunch of the nerve fiber, you can consider, that is called by the name of quada equina, which is looking like a tail of the horse. Because of that reason it is called quada equina. Or see here, the spinal cord is terminating at the level of L1 or L2, and nerves are descending downwards and passing through the respective foramina. So this bunch of nerve is called by the name of quada equina. So what is quada equina? The lower end of the spinal cord terminates at the L1 and L2 vertebrae, but spinal nerves bunch extends up to the end of the vertebral canal. This nerve bunch is formed by the lumbar, sacral and coccygeal nerves, and which is looking like a tail of the horse, known as quada equina. This quada equina consists of 4 pairs of the lumbar nerves and 5 pairs of sacral nerves and 1 pair of coccygeal nerve. So it means 5 plus 1, 9 plus 1, 10 pairs of the nerves are present in this bunch. Why I am explaining this? Because this quada equina and conus medullaris and phylum terminalis, these questions are asked repeatedly for the 2 mark. And after that, next we are going to discuss about the phylum terminale. So what is this phylum terminale? See, phylum terminale is the thin white delicate thread-like structure. It is a thin white delicate thread-like structure which is formed by the pyometer and second, third and fourth coccygeal rudimentary nerves. These are the rudimentary nerves. Joined together they form one filament. This filament is extending from the conus medullaris to the first coccygeal vertebrae. Approximately it is 20 centimeter long. See in this picture, you can see first. See, the spinal cord is going to terminate here, but the spinal cord closely adherent to the pyometer. In this picture I am going to clarify. See, this is a durameter. This is a durameter, this is a arachnoid matter, this is a pyometer. Pyometer is closely attached and throughout the length of the spinal cord. This pyometer, when it reaches to the end, lower end of the spinal cord, what is going to happen? It is attached to the conus medullaris. After that, it is converted into thin filament, or this thin filament of the pyometer. So once again I will repeat here. The pyometer is closely adherent to the spinal cord. The spinal cord is going to terminate at the L1. After that, this pyometer is continued as a thin filament. Not only this pyometer, along with the pyometer, it includes the rudimentary second, third, fourth coccygeal nerves. They are converted into filament and continue and attached to the coccyx. So this thin filament, which is extending from the conus medullaris, tip of the conus medullaris to the first coccygeal vertebrae, this filament is called by the name of phylum terminale. This phylum terminale approximately is 20 centimeter long. See in this picture you can see spinal cord is terminated here. Spinal cord is terminated here, but thin filament along with the coccygeal nerves. So this is called phylum terminale, and this bunch of the nerve, this together bunch of the nerve is called quada equina. Next, phylum terminale is further divided into 2 parts. One is phylum terminale internum and phylum terminale externum. What is this phylum terminale internum? So phylum terminale internum is a 15 centimeter long. It extends from tip of the conus medullaris to the second sacral vertebrae. The tip of the conus medullaris. See, tip of the conus medullaris extending up to the sacral second. See, this is a sacral 1, it is a sacral 2, it is a sacral second, it is going to terminate. Up to this, it is covered in the sheath of the durameter. Because of that reason, it is called internum, phylum internum. After that, durameter sheath disappears. But after the second cervical vertebrae, second sacral vertebrae to the tip of the coccyx, the pre part, it is not covered with the durameter. So this is called externum. It is internum because it is covered in the durameter sheath. It is free from the durameter sheath. Then it is called externum. See, phylum terminale internum, it is a 15 centimeter long. It extends from the tip of the conus medullaris to the second sacral vertebrae. It is within the dural sac. And phylum terminale externum, it is a 5 centimeter long. It extends from second sacral vertebrae to the coccygeal vertebrae, and it's outside the dural sheath. And next we are going to discuss about the sulcus and the fissures. See, if you are taken the spinal cord, a external part of the spinal cord or external surface of the spinal cord consists the sulcus. See here, this is a deep sulcus is present here. It is a vertical longitudinal. So this is called anterior median sulcus. Similarly, there will be another sulcus posteriorly, that is called posterior median sulcus, because it is a shallow and it is the deep. Anterior median fissure is the deep longitudinal cleft extending along entire length of the anterior surface of the spinal cord. Throughout the length of the spinal cord it is present. And posterior median sulcus is a faint or shallow longitudinal groove on the posterior surface of the entire length of the spinal cord. It is present posterior throughout the length. How it is anteriorly it is present. Similarly, it is present posteriorly, but it is a shallow one, it is a deep one. What is the main role of this anterior median fissure and posterior median sulcus? This anterior median fissure and posterior median sulcus divides the spinal cord into two equal halves. One is the right hall, another one is the left hall. Next we are going to discuss, there is another sulcus that's called anterolateral sulcus. See, this is the anterior median fissure, and lateral to the anterior median fissure there is another sulcus. It is also shallow vertical. This is called anterolateral sulcus. This anterolateral sulcus is a shallow longitudinal groove through which ventral root of the spinal nerves are emerges. See, the spinal nerves are emerging out here. So this is the ventral root of the spinal nerves are emerging here. And posterolateral sulcus is also shallow longitudinal groove through which dorsal root of the spinal nerves enters into the spinal cord. See, this is a posterior median sulcus. Here, lateral to that, there is a posterolateral sulcus through which the sensory root nerve is going to enter inside the spinal cord. Dorsal root is sensory in nature and ventral root is motor in nature. So it means the external surface of the spinal cord consists of anterior median fissure and posterior median sulcus, which divides the spinal cord into two equal halls. If you consider one equal hall, then you will get the anterolateral sulcus, which is for the ventral root, and posterior lateral sulcus for the sensory root of the spinal nerve. Next we are going to discuss about the surfaces. Now we know sulcuses, then it is easy to discuss the surfaces. One is the anterior surface, another is the posterior surface, another one is the lateral surface. See, this is the anterior median sulcus. This is a anterior median fissure and posterior median sulcus, which divides the spinal cord into two equal halls, right and the left. If you consider only one hall here, one hall if you are consider, see, this is the anterior surface, this is the lateral surface, this is the posterior surface. Then anterior surface is the surface which is extending from anterior median fissure to the anterior lateral sulcus. And posterior surface is extending from posterior median sulcus to the posterior lateral sulcus. And lateral surface which is extending from the anterior lateral sulcus to the posterior lateral sulcus. Anterior surface, lateral surface and posterior surface. So these are the surfaces of the spinal cord. Next we are going to discuss spinal nerves attached to the spinal cord. See, total number of the spinal nerves are 31 pairs. So among 31 pairs, 8 are present in the cervical region, 12 are present in the thoracic, and 5 are present in sacral, and 1 is present in the coccygeal. So here in this section, next we are going to cover the spinal nerves detail. See, the spinal nerves are 8 in cervical, 12 in thoracic, sacral 5 and coccygeal 1. So spinal nerves, cervical nerves passing from the vertebral canal above the corresponding vertebrae. For example, see C1 spinal nerve. This is a C1 spinal nerve passing above the C1 vertebrae. And this is a C2 vertebrae. C2 cervical nerve is passing above. It means the cervical nerves passing from the vertebral canal above corresponding vertebrae. And C8 passing below the C7th vertebrae and above the T1. See here. You see the C8 cervical vertebrae. It is passing below the C7 and above the T1 vertebrae here, and remaining spinal nerves passing below the spinal cord, remaining spinal nerves passes below the corresponding vertebrae. For example, see here, this is the what you are calling this is the C8 nerve. Then it's a T1, T2, T3, T4. You can take the T5 nerve. So you can say this is a T5 nerve. This T5 nerve are passing below the T5 vertebrae. So like this, they are passing. Similarly, in the lower end, the sacral or lumbar nerves are emerging and descending downwards and passing through the respective foramen. Next, we are going to discuss about one spinal nerve structure. See, if you have taken the one spinal nerve, this is a spinal nerve. This spinal nerve consists of the two root. One is the ventral root or anterior root, and this is called dorsal root. Ventral root is always purely motor in nature, and dorsal root or posterior root is purely sensory in nature. This dorsal root and motor root both are joined here, form the spinal nerve. This spinal nerve is further split into two, that is ventral rami and the dorsal rami. This is the dorsal rami, this is the ventral rami. Ventral rami, it is a mixed, because few sensory fibers are coming here, few motor fibers are coming here, and ramis are mixed, but roots are pure. So it means one spinal nerve, dorsal root, ventral root, spinal nerve. Spinal nerve is further divided into ventral rami, dorsal rami and the ventral rami. Ventral rami is mixed. It is a motor and sensory. Both fibers are found here, and ventral rami also consists of both motor and the sensory fibers. So this is about the general structure. Then come to the point, segments of the spinal cord. What is the segments of the spinal cord? The part of the spinal cord that gives off one pair of the spinal nerve is known as spinal segment or spinal segment of the spinal cord. See, in this picture, see, this is the one spinal nerve, this is one spinal nerve, this spinal nerve has a rootlets here, this is the anterior root, this is the posterior root. This spinal nerve occupies some area in the spinal cord. How much area is occupied by one spinal nerve in the spinal cord? So that area is called by the name of spinal segment. It is a spinal segment 1, spinal segment 2, like that. The spinal segments are different, and vertebral column vertebrae are different. The spinal segments are not corresponding to the vertebrae. For example, C1 segment may lies with the C1 vertebrae. C2 it may lies along with the C2 vertebrae, but remaining are not lying opposite or equal. It means the spinal segments are not corresponding to the vertebrae. Then they are not corresponding to the vertebrae means how should we calculate? See the cervical segments, cervical vertebrae, thoracic segments, thoracic vertebrae, the lumbar segments, lumbar vertebrae, sacral segments, sacral vertebrae, coccygeal vertebrae. Similarly, in this picture, it is in the 3rd month of the fetus, but in the adult, the spinal cord length is not equal to the vertebral column. Because of that is what is going to happen. Lumbar and sacral and coccygeal segments are concentrated here. Then they are not corresponding to the vertebral column. Then how to calculate this? For this calculation, they are given some important formula. See, first, if you want upper cervical level, the spinal segment C2 is equal to the C2 vertebrae, that is the same level. In the lower cervical, at the level of vertebrae C5, we should add one vertebrae. One, if you C5 vertebrae, if you got the C5 vertebrae, no, you will get the C5 vertebrae. Then at the level of the C5 vertebrae, C6th spinal segment is going to lie. So how to calculate? First, identify the C5 vertebrae, add 1. In the upper cervical, you should add 1. Then you will get the spinal segment. In upper thoracic, we should add 2. For example, at the level of the third vertebrae, the thoracic 5 segment is going to lie. In the lower thoracic vertebrae, we should add 3. And in the lumbar and the sacral, we should add in the lumbar region L1 to L5 or T10 to T11. So you should add T10 to T11. To this you should add 3 or to 5. And in the sacral or coccygeal, T12 to L1, so you should add 6 to 10, then you will get the spinal segments. So this is very important in the spinal cord injury. For example, if the spinal cord is injured, if the vertebral column is injured at the level of L1 or L2, then these segments are going to damage. So to understand the vertebral column injury and the relation between the injury to the vertebral column and the spinal segments, at that time it's a very important chart. You should remember the upper cervical same, lower cervical you should add 1, and upper thoracic you should add 2, in lower thoracic you should add 3, and lumbar and the sacral, so 3 to 5 or 6 to 10 we should add. So once again I am going to summarize all the explanation here. External features: coverings, dura mater, arachnoid mater, and the phia mater, and spaces: subdural space, epidural space, and subarachnoid space. Enlargement: cervical enlargement and lumbar enlargement. Ends: upper end, lower end. And surfaces: anterior surface, lateral surface, posterior surface. And sulcus: anterior median sulcus, anterior median fissure, posterior median sulcus, anterior lateral sulcus, and the posterior lateral sulcus. So anterior median fissure and posterior median sulcus divides the spinal cord into two equal halves, and one half consists the anterior surface, lateral surface, and the posterior surface. So anterolateral sulcus, which gives origin for the ventral root of the spinal cord, and posterolateral sulcus gives origin for the entry of the dorsal root of the spinal cord. Then spinal nerves. The spinal nerves are 31 pairs: cervical 8, thoracic 12, and lumbar 5, sacral 5, and coccygeal 1. And spinal segment. What is the spinal segment? It is the area on the spinal cord through which one pair of the spinal nerves are going to arise. This the area in the spinal cord through which one pair of the spinal nerves are arising, no, that area is called by the name of spinal segment. In the third month of fetus, the spinal cord segments and vertebral column both are similar or equal. Because of that reason they are corresponding. But in the adult, the length of the spinal cord is 45 centimeter and length of the vertebral column is 65 centimeter. Because of that reason, the spinal segments and the vertebrae are not corresponding. To calculate, there is I already given the formula. So in next class we are going to cover the internal features of the spinal cord. Thank you.